TDS on rent for resident landlord. Who, when and how to deduct. Hi everyone, I'm Ushma Jain. Welcome back to my channel. Wishing you a very productive and happy day ahead. In my last video, I discussed about TDS on rent paid to NRI landlord. I got a few requests to make a similar video for TDS on rent when landlord is a resident. So today we are going to understand about the basics when TDS on rent is paid to a resident landlord in India. I will try to cover points like who needs to deduct TDS, which section applies, what the threshold and rates are, when and how to deduct and deposit TDS, what the landlord must do. So let's get started. Point 1. Two key sections, Section 194I and Section 194IB. There are basically two TDS provisions for rent to a resident landlord. First is Section 194I, which applies when the tenant is a company, a firm, a LLP or individual HUF with turnover greater than 1 crore if he has business and rupees 50 lakhs if he has a profession. Section 194IB applies when the tenant is an individual or HUF not covered under Section 194I. Let's try to understand each section in detail. First, let's discuss Section 194I. Point 2, Section 194I, the general rule. Who needs to deduct TDS under Section 194I? Any person other than an individual or HUF like company, firm or LLP, or an individual or HUF who is required to get books audited under Section 44AB, that is large businesses and professions. If they pay rent to a resident and the rent crosses the threshold, then TDS under Section 194I must be deducted. Now, what is rent? Rent under Section 194I means payment for use or right to use any of land, building, including factory, machinery, plant, equipment, furniture or fittings. What is the threshold as of April 1, 2025? The Budget 2025 amended the threshold from 1st April 2025. TDS under Section 194I is triggered if rent paid or credited for a month or a part of month exceeds rupees 50,000. The earlier threshold was rupees 2,40,000 per year for many cases. What are the rates? Now TDS rate is 2% when rent is for plant, machinery or equipment, and it will be 10% when rent is for land or building including factory, furniture or fittings. When to deduct? You must deduct TDS when rent is paid. How to deposit and file TDS returns? The tenant must deposit the TDS on time, usually via Challan ITNS 281, by due date, normally 7th of next month when deduction occurs. Then file quarterly TDS return, that is Form 26Q for non-salary. Issue TDS certificate, that is Form 16A to the landlord. Section 194IB for individual and HUFs not under audit. Who needs to deduct? This section applies when an individual or HUF who is not required to get accounts audited under Section 44AB pays rent to a resident landlord and monthly rent exceeds rupees 50,000. Threshold and rate after amendment. So as I mentioned, threshold is when monthly rent exceeds rupees 50,000 and TDS rate is 2% of the entire rent payable paid for that financial year or tenancy period. It is effective from 1st October 2024. Timing. Deduction at the time of payment or credit of rent for the last month of the financial year or the last month of the tenancy if vacated earlier, whichever comes earlier. So in this case, There is no need to deduct TDS monthly. TDS deposits and return. File Form 26QC. It's a challan cum statement which you can file online. Deposit the TDS amount within 30 days from the end of the month in which deduction happened. Issue Form 16C to the landlord within 15 days of the filing. Now, landlord compliance. If you as a resident landlord receive rent from a tenant, always give your PAN to the tenant. If PAN is missing, higher TDS rates applies. After TDS is deducted and deposited, check your Form 26AS to ensure credit is reflecting. While filing your income tax return, include rental income under income from house property to claim credit for TDS. Keep the TDS certificate Form 16A or Form 16C, whatever applicable in your case, in records. If the tenant failed to deduct TDS, you may highlight them to the department. Here is the table for quick recap. The increase in threshold for Section 194I from earlier Rs 2.5 lakh per year to Rs 6 lakh per year means many smaller rental arrangements no longer trigger TDS. And for individual and HUF who has to deduct TDS under Section 194IB, rate reduction to 2% from 5% means lesser cash blocked. Also, it helps reduce compliance burden for smaller renters and landlords. But still missing deduction or late deposit leads to interest and penalties. So compliance remains key. I hope this video helped you understand the basics of how much TDS needs to be deducted and how it should be deposited when the landlord is a resident. Still, it's always better to take professional help for tax compliance as the process involves filing multiple forms and filing TDS returns correctly. So if you found this video useful, do let me know in the comments. See you in my next video. Take care and goodbye.